Gym Class Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Bombo. You can also find us on ESPN Charlotte, 7:30 The Game. And I'm here with J.M. Robinson, first-year head coach, Jason Seidel. Coach, first of all, I just want to say I appreciate you taking time out. Gary expressed to me how you're not much of an interview guy. So,
yeah, no, thanks for having me.
You know, but like you said, anything for the kids.
Yeah.
You have a talented group right here.
I do.
You inherited the senior class with a lot of talent.
Yeah.
You guys seem to have hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm.
Making a adjustment from 4A back down to 3A.
Actually, 2A. We were 2A. We went up. Yeah, we went up to 3A.
An adjustment from 2A to 3A.
Yep.
You've had some familiarity with 3A. If you could just talk to me about how do you feel this team has adjusted to that. Clearly, the schedule and the numbers say that y'all have done pretty well.
Yeah.
But as far as like mentality-wise and getting the team ready, how's that adjustment been for you and the team?
It's been good. I got here late, so the summer was, fly by the seat of your pants a little bit. And honestly, we just preached about how we're the ones circled on everybody's calendar. Everybody wants to beat us. We did well in 2A before I was here. And so a lot of 3A teams were like, hey, you need to come up, and here we are. So I said, everybody wants to prove a point against you. So we use that as an edge every week. Like, everybody's got you circled. You're the game. So you have to bring it every game. You have to have your best game, because if you don't, somebody's going to knock you off. So that's been our mantra this season. Yeah.
And what's been the adjustment like for players mentally? Because when you have one level and you dominate the competition, you can kind of get full of yourself a lot of work.
Yeah.
What's been the mentality, and how have you been able to direct those guys throughout this process?
They've been good. They hear from me every day. I seem to be, maybe not the negative, but always be on the lookout for this. We can't get too high, can't get too low. Even after the Concord win, I still, hey, we got things we got fixed. I don't care what the scoreboard says. So how teenage boys are. Here comes rolling the eyes, like, oh, come on. No, man, it's coming, because eventually we are going to run into, somebody that's better than us, maybe more talent, more numbers, more size. So if we don't do the little things correctly, that's going to cost us.
Speaking of the size, I noticed that a couple of your stops, you have been taking on the role of strength coach as well as the head coach.
Yeah.
Is that something that you just pride yourself in?
Yeah.
Because we know they say bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
What is it about that role that you felt like you needed to be in that role to help your team succeed?
This is my 22nd year coaching, and I've learned under some great coaches, and I learned that the weight room is the lifeblood of a football program. And to me, I think that head coach needs to be in there as much as possible, because that's where the relationships are built, the hard work's built in there. You find out very quickly who your leaders are, who your workers are, who your guys that want to hide. So I like to be there from the jump, and so this is probably just in the weight room, my 10th to 11th year in the weight room, and I love it. I love being around the guys, seeing them work, and it's fun because it's a process and it takes time, but as they buy into it, it changes the culture.
Yeah, just to speak of the process, I mean, you not being a native from North Carolina, coming from upstate.
Yeah.
That'd be upstate New York, right?
Yeah, just outside the Bronx, yeah.
Just talk to me about your early coaching career and the transition from playing football up north in New York to now being in the Carolinas and the South, where football seems to be the second pro sport sometimes around areas.
Yeah, and so I played for my dad up in New York. Good coach, he's a Hall of Fame coach up there. So I played small college ball, and then after college I moved to Wilmington and started coaching at Laney High School. And it was funny, just something as basic as a dynamic stretch, movement with stretching. They didn't do that when I played. It was all static stretch. I was calling my dad, I was like, man, we don't even static stretch. He was like, what are you talking about? I was like, we do this thing called dynamic stretch. And he was like, it don't make sense. And I was like, come on down. And I said, this is how we do things. So it's amazing just the different level, because in New York there isn't strength classes during the day. They don't have that. So down here, everybody takes weight training during the day. You knock it out. And in New York, that's not how it is. It's starting to get that way now. When I played, that was unheard of. If you wanted to lift, you had to do it after school, but you usually played other sports. So you see a difference in the size of kids, and the toughness is up there still in New York. But when I got down here, did 7 in Wilmington, moved to Charlotte, did 10 years there, and then quickly went down to Columbia, South Carolina. It's funny, I went from New York to North Carolina, South Carolina. I got to see all different levels from 4A at Laney to 3A and 4A Hickory Ridge to 5A in Blythewood to change that program. So I've seen the different levels, but what remains constant is the work that you put in is what you're going to get out of that program.
So throughout that journey, what stopped and what part you could expound on as much as you like? Where have you feel like you've grown the most as a coach throughout these journeys from Wilmington to Blackwood, your first coaching job? Where have you grown the most, you feel?
I learned a lot. My first head job, Hickory Ridge. We had great runs there. We broke state records or school records and went to state semis and 3A and then 4A. I've probably grown the most knowing you can't do it by yourself. Like, it's about your staff. Like, your team's only as good as your staff is. And at Blythewood, we were there for 5 years, and it took all 5 to change the program. And really what changed it was that last year finally getting everybody I needed on staff. And it takes a while. It's tough with teaching. You got to get the right jobs open. And in the final year 5, we had it, and it finally kicked. It skyrocketed because I know in that process I had to get rid of some guys that I was friends with that they didn't buy in all the way. It wasn't against us. It's just like some of them were 30-year vets, and they're like, man, I ain't got time anymore to do all the little things. And so eventually I needed to go younger and guys that would buy in and buy into the kids and build relationships. And I'm a relationship-built coach, so I need coaches to have that same belief that if we build the right relationships and bond with the kids and get them to work and buy into each other, then we'll make something happen. Yeah.
Just talk to me about that process of cutting off friends.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's something important. We sometimes have to cut off, not to say dead ends, loose ends, but sometimes to grow, you got to let some of the old things go, And when you're in the industry, especially in coaching, and you got to make those tough decisions because you're the head guy in charge. Just talk to me about that process and just your mentality of saying, okay, I have to make this decision, and making that decision, and then being okay with that decision.
It's hard. That's probably the other part. When you become the head guy, and every coach will tell you that first head job, it's, oh man, I'm the one that's got to do this. When you're the assistant, it's like, oh yeah, you need to do that, but you're not the one having to sit in that chair. And I got better at it. There's times I would probably hang on to guys too long because I didn't want to, ruin a relationship. But in the end, it's, this is my program. I need it to be the way I need it. And just because maybe you're not against it, but maybe that's just not what you believe in. I'm not going to force you to believe in it. Then we need to part ways. And the same with kids. Getting rid of a kid is not fun, but we've done it everywhere we go. If I feel like you're going to hurt the program or you're bringing the kids down, like, I got to chop you. And I always tell them when I do it, you need something, I'm still here. But as far as the football team, you just can't be a part of it. And it's hard, man. I've had countless, talks with my wife and even my dad, like, what do you think? What's the best way to go? But especially always that first year in a new program, I've got to find guys that are willing to do what I need them to do, and it's always like a constant interview every day. I'm always watching our players and our coaches and the people I work with, just like they're watching me. And our coach is still trying to, the new guys that were on staff last year that we retained, they're still trying to figure me out, like, okay, what is he like, what doesn't he like? And that's fun to me. That's the process. That's how we learn to grow. And when we first got here, I brought in some guys that have been with me. And to see us in the beginning of the summer was almost like we were all feeling each other out. Now you're starting to see even the staff come together, which then it brings the kids together. But anytime you got to cut ties or you got to cut friends off, it's like you said. I'm not saying goodbye to you. I'm growing in a different direction, and I need to have the right things around me for me to be successful. And for me to be successful, I'm never about me. I want the program to be successful, and so I'm gonna do whatever I can to make sure the program's successful.
I guess we need to take an intermission right there. Kids, that message right there doesn't just apply to a coach. It applies to anybody in your life. If you want to move forward, you're gonna have to make those decisions sometime. And that's the advice that at least I can give, and that's one thing that we try to do is we try to give that advice. But looking at your career and the success that you have had, what has been the best career advice that you have gotten? You the man you are now?
The funny one I got when I got into coaching was my dad tried to talk me out of it. And he said, how do you phrase it? He was like, you're going to be disliked more than you were ever liked. And I was like, huh? I was like, everybody likes you. And he goes, no, you think that, But when you have to make the hard decisions, you're never going to make everybody happy, so somebody's always going to be upset. And he goes, you've got to get comfortable in that situation. I think when it first happened, I was like, man, what? And, you know, and then you're trying to make everybody happy and you can't. And then as I've gotten older and started to figure out, it's like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I believe in. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, man. This is what's best for us. And so that was probably the best one. It makes sense as I got older. Yeah. So.
Yeah. What would you say had probably been one of the most uncomfortable times you had as a coach?
Probably the same thing. Anytime you gotta sit down with one of your guys and say, I got to cut you loose. You know, at Blythewood, that fourth year we got rid of probably 5 or 6 coaches that had been with me that we're just growing 2 different ways, and sitting them down in the chair and saying, man, this is something I got to do. And some of them now still don't talk. And it's like, man, it ain't personal, but my name's the one that's attached to this. If things can go wrong, I'm the one that's getting laid off, not you. Like, they brought me here for a reason. And so that's part of it. So when I got that advice, you're going to be disliked a little bit more. And sometimes it's not word dislike, maybe it's misunderstood. Like, they don't see it from your side. Well, I get it, you know, I understand. So I treat people as best I can and with respect, but when it comes to the team, like, that's what we got to do is best for us.
Man, I don't want to be too personal, but I just have to ask because I feel like it has an impact on who you have become as a man. And
Yeah.
But like, I believe your first couple of years that you're coaching in Carolina,
Yeah.
you didn't have your family with you.
No, I came down in 01. My sister had moved to Wilmington, but I had left everything else behind. Yeah, so it was kind of like figure it out on your own, you know.
So how was that process, you know? Because I know there's probably times that you probably questioned yourself.
Yeah,
making the right decisions. Were you just looking out for yourself? So just talk to me about that process.
Yeah, so it took me a while. I didn't get into teaching right away. I was actually working at a law firm. I had to go back to school to get into teaching. So the only reason I started working at Laney was the neighborhood I lived in, my sister's for a while, was across the street. So of course, like August hit that first summer, I wasn't playing college ball, and you're like, something's missing, like I should be doing something. And then you're seeing them outside at practice. And so one day I walked over and met the head coach, Robert Tate, who used to be the assistant strength coach at North Carolina and ECU. And I was like, man, you need any help? And he took me on. And then after that first year, I was offensive coordinator, and it kind of took off. But it was, yeah, you were on your own, like, you got to figure it out. And it was, at first, I remember my dad's a teacher, my sister, everybody's teachers and coaches. I was like, I'm never going to do that. And then he kept like, why I keep coming back to this? And that's, you know, finally, probably year 2 or 3 when I was like, I think this is what I want to do. Every time I tried something else, I was like, I'm not really into it. I enjoy being around kids.
Wow,
so.
That's amazing. I mean,
yeah.
to think about that.
Yeah.
The process and
yeah.
You know, that grows into something that you're definitely in.
Yeah.
Well, now you have this new chapter of your life that you're coming up with J.M. Robinson, off to a good start. But where do you look? Because I believe in a 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's one thing I always preach. Like, once you go into a new endeavor, what is your 5-year plan? And I'll to ask you that same question.
Yeah, so usually, especially with football, it's probably on average it takes like 4 to 6 to, like you say, 5 years on average to kind of change everything. And it's not a change here. They've done well like here. So it wasn't like I inherited something horrible, and that's usually 4 to 6 year plan. It's just putting your identity on it. So the 5-year for us is getting the kids to buy into each other. Like we talk about, together is our phrase, what we use, and we mean it. And you know, we talk, not every kid on the team is like obsessed with football. Like you got some kids that are obsessed, some kids that like it, and then some kids that just want to be a part of the team. Well, the kids that want to be a part of the team, like they need to buy into, you can't get them to love something if they don't love it, but if they love what their teammates are doing, that kind of is what starts to tie the relationship. So the big 5-year for us is bringing everybody together, the academics, the community. How do we tie this whole thing? So we opened up at Hickory Ridge, which was our old school, first game, and it was the biggest crowd in Robinson history. It was packed. And to win that was huge, but it was like, there's the jump start we needed. Like there was that crowd that everybody at Robinson, all the students, the week going into the game was like, man, we never have good crowds. Like, just kind of the MO here. And I was like, okay. And it just packed out. And then you have a crazy, exciting game. So all of a sudden everybody's like, you know what, maybe when you start going, and I was telling the guys, this is how it starts to build. But how you treat the people around you is what also gets them to come back. And that's our 5-year plan. Wins and losses are going to come and go. I don't ever, in all my years, I've never said, like, I need a state title. Like, we got to do this. It's all about if we take care of ourselves, like, together, build the community, build the program, the wins, they're going to happen, you know. And so I said, don't worry about stats, don't worry about that, just worry about building relationships. Everything else will grow, and that's kind of that's our 5-year plan.
It's crazy because, like, one, you coach the Hickory.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and they come in and they have this Division I prospect.
Oh, they're loaded, yeah.
Caden Haywood, who's supposed to be like the next thing.
And I coached his brother. Yeah, yeah.
Just talk to me about, like, just having that game being your first introduction into the sport.
Yeah. Sorry, Coach. Yeah. It was crazy to, you know, even when I took the job, my AD was like, first game is Hickory Ridge. I was like, oh, here we go. But then you start looking at the roster, and I was like, oh, I coached that kid's brother, you know, coached it, and the place was packed with like former players. And I was like, man, they got talent everywhere. Like they just, even their JV team came and kicked our tail. But they looked like they had almost 90 kids on their JV, and we had like 40. And I was like, that's what it is at Hickory Ridge. They just have those numbers. They're 4A schools, so it was best for us because we had a undefeated freshman team coming in, hadn't lost in like 2 years in middle school. And they got their butts kicked, and I was like, good. Like, we needed that. Like, you all coming in a little arrogant. Like, you need to get your butt kicked a little bit. But to see that and see it from the other side, go, man, like, that's what it was like being over there, seeing all those dudes. So for us to win that, I think it was huge for our kids. Like, you can do this if you just do it the right way. And I think that was a chance for them to instantly kind of buy in, like, okay, you know, I get where we're going. Because sometimes it takes a win to do that, unfortunately. You know how this world is. Like, they want to see results quick. So the parents, so does the community. And sometimes it doesn't work that way. But for us, it did happen that way. And I think the kids were like, man, I get it. I get what you're talking about. But every week, it's a new reminder. Like, I don't care what you did last week. This is a whole new week. Like, we got to get better each week. If we don't, it's going to end at some point quickly, you know. And
well, Coach, I mean, you guys are progressing every week.
Hopefully.
Like, you know, I'm be looking forward to watching you guys play. Y'all got a big matchup this weekend. And I know the preparation has been kind of stagnant due to the weather. But I'm looking forward to seeing you guys play, and I appreciate you sitting down talking with me and just telling your story to the masses, because that's what we need more. More breaking that glass and kind of being able to, not even if you're not touching a person, being able to see what that person is. And I feel like that's what we try to do, and I appreciate you just sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.